has been a while since I posted on this channel, but I wanted to sit down and do a mini eclipse reading and a breakdown of some of the astrology that's happening this week. So if you don't know me, I'm Sarah. I'm an astrologer, I'm an energy reader. I've been studying astrology for a few years now, and I used to post on YouTube a lot more, and I'm trying to get back into doing that again because I love rambling about astrology. It's fun. So according to the tropical zodiac, the North Node and South Node have been existing in Scorpio and Taurus, and we've seen eclipses taking place in those signs for the last 18 months or so, since about November 2021. And I'm never trying to scare anybody. That's not my intention. I just had a really crazy personal experience with an eclipse, and I've had other really crazy personal experiences with eclipses, and I'd love to hear about yours if you have any eclipse stories about something crazy that happened. It's always interesting to see how these eclipses manifest in our lives in ways that bring about a lot of change, a lot of transformation, a lot of sudden shifts, a lot of great endings and great beginnings. And you know, November 2021 was not only when I totaled my car, but right around that time it pushed me into a brand new job that I've been at for almost 2 years now. So lots of big endings and big beginnings. So just as a disclaimer, I use the tropical zodiac, and for the purposes of mundane astrology and with clients, I typically use whole sign house astrology. It's the easiest and it makes the most sense and it works the best for those kinds of things. But in my own personal practice and a lot of the ways that I've studied astrology is with the Placidus system. It's all preferential, but I'm just using the tropical zodiac and the whole sign house system. So the astrology of the last 2 months or so has been really energetic and chaotic because I feel like things were really slow for a long time there, especially with that Mars retrograde for six or so months in Gemini, and you know, Saturn taking its time through Aquarius, and then in March we came out of those long periods. Gemini moved into Cancer and Saturn moved into Pisces. And Pluto is just starting to move into Aquarius as well. It's going to retrograde in and out, but we had some really big shifts take place in the last month or two. And you can really feel that energy. You can feel those shifts take place. There's a lot of interesting things that have been happening. It just feels like the energy is really ramping up, especially after such a long period of slowness and maybe delays, just kind of feeling stuck and held back a little bit, stuck in the mud. And on a larger scale, the last 18 months or so, since November 2021, when the nodes kind of shifted into the Taurus-Scorpio axis, we've been experiencing eclipses in these two signs. If you remember back to May of 2022, last year, the eclipses were taking place in Taurus and Scorpio also, and a lot of the same themes I feel are coming up again this eclipse season this time around. And it's also interesting, especially on top of all that, we have Uranus still in Taurus, we have the North Node in Taurus, you know, slowly moving towards Aries. It's shifting to Aries next month. And then we also have, of course, Mercury retrograding throughout all of this eclipse season, sandwiched in between two eclipses. So the energy's been really chaotic. I don't know a better word to say. There's definitely better words to think of. I'll think of some more, but the energy's just been hectic, and eclipses always bring about a sort of heightened uncertainty, a heightened energetic and emotional energy to them, especially when it's taking place in a sign like Scorpio, the one that's happening this week. The first one took place on April 20th. Well, I was using Eastern time zone. I use the Eastern time zone. That's my time zone. It took place at the wee hours of the morning at 12 a.m. something on April 20th. And then that was at 29 degrees Aries. The one that's taking place today, or whenever you're watching this, taking place on May 5th, is happening at about 1:30 p.m. I believe on the Eastern time zone. Yep, 1:30 p.m. You know, the Taurus-Scorpio axis that has really been teaching us a lot of lessons with the North Node going through those signs these last 18 months has really been about possession, how we feel about ourselves, the kind of things that we possess, the kind of things that we hold on to for comfort and security, the way that we feel about ourselves on a deeper level. Scorpio was all about digging up that deeper stuff, so there's been a lot of themes of that, getting rid of the really dead, deep-rooted, ugly stuff. And Uranus moving through the sign of Taurus for the last few years has been teaching us so much about reimagining and reestablishing a sense of security and comfort and familiarity in terms of our resources, how we feel about ourselves, our groundedness, what brings us comfort, what brings us stability. And then the eclipses taking place in Scorpio have a lot more to do with some of our deeper rooted stuff in terms of our personal emotional security that we feel within ourselves, the kind of things that we hold on to for way too long and really need to let go of. And I think specifically for this eclipse coming up on the 5th of May, there's going to be a big focus on that deep-rooted stuff that we really just need to let go of, shed, so that we can move into these newer versions of ourselves with new ideas about what brings us comfort and security. I think for a lot of people, a lot of these lessons have been about coming out of our comfort zone and trying new things and trying to move into newer versions of ourselves, new reincarnations of ourselves. And I think Uranus being such an innovative planet, it almost gives this energy of reinventing ourselves. I think a lot of us have been thinking a lot about what we actually need in terms of material and emotional security. And when that changes, how that can open us up to whole new worlds of moving out of our zones of comfort to try completely new things and to be versions of ourselves that maybe we didn't know was possible, or we didn't think was possible because we couldn't let go of older versions of ourselves. So the eclipse that took place on April 19th, 20th at 29 degrees Aries was pretty critical. I won't get into degree theory, but 29 degrees is a pretty critical degree. It's the culminating degree. It's the last degree before you move into the next sign. So it was pretty critical for a lot of people, depending on which house it fell in for you. So if you know your first house and what sign that is, you go along the signs till you find Aries, and then what house that resides in was probably the focus and area of your life that you experienced something sudden in, a big shift in, a big moment of clarity, a big realization in, and especially in terms of something to do with your identity, your idea of self, and the kind of strides you're making towards that version of yourself, going after what you want, all those Aries qualities. And I did forget to mention, the nodes are shifting from one axis to another, and so we've been having that Taurus-Scorpio axis, but this last eclipse that was a few weeks ago, it took place in the sign of Aries, so the nodes are shifting into that new Aries-Libra axis where they'll stay for the next year and a half, and then we'll have all the Aries-Libra lessons to learn. But this is the last of the Taurus-Scorpio eclipses, so this Scorpio eclipse is going to be really powerful. So if you find where Scorpio falls in your houses, I think this eclipse is going to be a lot more about digging up the deeper parts of ourselves, the things that we're holding on to, the things that are stopping us from becoming that best version of ourselves. It really is this purging energy. You know, in modern rulership, Pluto is very scorpionic and Scorpio is very plutonic. And it has a lot to do with digging up the deeper, darker underbelly of things, getting to the root of things, you know, digging up and bringing to light what is dead, and then what we must get rid of, what we must shed in order to move on to the next chapter, move on to this newer version of ourselves, go pursue that thing we really want to do, etc. So for me, this Scorpio eclipse is taking place in my first house, and it's conjunct my Chiron. People born in the late 90s probably can relate to this. The eclipse is going to be taking place in my house of identity and self, and so I feel like I have really been going through a lot of challenging, albeit liberating experiences surrounding who I'm becoming and my identity and how I move through the world. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful experience to have. I'll give another example. If Scorpio is in your 7th house, one of my close friends, she's a Scorpio 7th house, there's going to be some big sudden realizations or shifts or changes about the way that you interact with other people, the way that you approach your one-on-one relationships, whether it be romantic or business partnership or close friendships. There's going to be changes in how you show up in those kinds of relationships and how it makes you think about and reflect on who you are and the types of people that you interact with and attract based on the version of yourself that you present to the world. I'll give one more example. If Scorpio is in your 11th house, let's say, you probably have been experiencing and will be experiencing some kind of shift in your public life in terms of your community, your friendships, your groups that you belong to. You may be experiencing shifts in your friendships, people coming and going, maybe shifting who you are in friend groups and how you show up in a more public sense, but also in how you are connected to the people around you. And there might be someone coming in very suddenly that's going to stay, or there may be someone going, a relationship that you need to say goodbye to. It is what it is, you know? So anyway, let's get into it. I'm looking at the chart and I have it pulled for May 5th, 2023 at 1:30 p.m. on the New York Eastern time zone. That is my time zone. And this eclipse is taking place in the afternoon. The sun and the moon are going to be opposing each other at 14 degrees of Taurus and Scorpio. So that gives us a 0 degrees Virgo ascendant, it looks like. Yeah, a 0 degrees Virgo ascendant. So that's pretty nice. I love when an ascendant falls on 0 degrees. It gives it such a freshness, a fresh start, someone that's at the beginning. And so there is this let's start anew, let's try something new, let's start a new chapter kind of energy to it, which is usually what comes along with eclipse energy anyway. It's this feeling of, oh, we're in a whole new era now. Like my life is in a whole new era. So Virgo first house, that means our ruler is Mercury, and that sits in the 9th house with Taurus and the sun and Uranus. So Mercury being in that 9th house where the sun is, it gives us a lot of mercurial, communicative, mental energy. There's probably a lot of focus on our endeavors, about our place in the world. The 9th house has a lot to do with education, spirituality, travel. So Mercury being there is saying a lot about how we are thinking about our place in the world in terms of these things, our identity within all of that, with the sun being in Taurus there. So the North Node and the Sun are sandwiching Mercury, the chart ruler, and it's all in the focus of the 9th house, which is interesting. So I think this says a lot about our focus on the bigger picture. It says a lot about our spiritual connection to the changes that we're going through. And I think it's really focused on forward movement and forward endeavors and thinking on a larger scale about our place in the world with the sun there, with our identity there, and coming from a very mentally busy place. I think a lot of people have been really experiencing that the Mercury retrograde that's been taking place lately, and you know, especially when the sun and Mercury were conjunct. I think a lot of people have been experiencing a bit of an identity crisis in terms of like, who am I in my surroundings? Who am I in my environment? And it's pointing to, you know, the moon in Scorpio directly opposing that. And it's saying, who am I internally? Who am I on the inside? And trying to balance out, not letting one overshadow the other, like who am I at my deepest level, at my core level? And then who am I in the bigger sense of, you know, where I fit into my place in the world in a more spiritual, philosophical sense? Especially because then we look to Venus, which is the ruler of that house where all that energy is happening, and that is in Gemini in the 10th house. So it says a lot about the kind of image and version of ourselves that we're trying to create, especially in terms of like publicly how we want to be seen, how we want to be interpreted, the kind of beauty and physical and visual presence we want to take up, the space we want to take up in the world, and how people look at us, like in terms of, you know, who they're seeing in terms of values. Venus is about values just as much as it is about beauty. You can see how much I'm stumbling over my words, this fucking Mercury retrograde. It just feels like we're in a very busy headspace. Like people's minds are going, there's a lot going on, there's a lot of mental chatter and like mental energy, a lot of people feeling very wired. I know I've been staying up really late. My sleep schedule has been all out of whack. I've been staying up way too late. I have so much energy. I feel like that is very showcasing of that. And then, of course, if we want to look at the moon being in Scorpio, the thing that's being eclipsed, we'll look at the ruler of that, which is Mars, which is sitting in Cancer in the 11th house. So I think a lot of us are thinking mostly about who we are in the world in a bigger picture sense, about what our purpose and mission is, the 10th house, and then also how we fit into larger groups, larger societies, larger communities, 11th house. And I think with this Mars transit through Cancer, it's been poking at a lot of our sensitivities, and making us really think and feel deeply about these things, even if it's not something that we typically spend a lot of mental or emotional energy on. But a lot of us have been feeling that sensitivity towards our larger groups and where we fit in. I'm really getting that energy of like, who am I? How do I fit into the larger context of the world? What's my purpose? What's my mission? How am I going to be seen? How am I going to be received? There's a lot of that energy with these eclipses. I do want to also mention that Venus in Gemini at the tail end degrees of that sign is squaring Neptune at the tail end degrees of Pisces. Neptune's going to spend some more time in Pisces for the next couple years, but we've seen over the last few years with Venus-Neptune squares, especially with Neptune being in Pisces in a mutable sign, really hitting those squares with the other mutable signs. The Venus square Neptune transits have been interesting. It's brought a lot of illusion and delusion, of course, but it's brought a lot of romantic energy and a romanticizing of what could be. And again, I want to bring it back to that, like, who am I? What is my mission? What's my larger place in the world? I think a lot of us are in a place of idealization right now, where we're thinking a lot about and musing upon what we could be, what we want to do with ourselves and our lives, like how we want to serve others, you know, what our purpose is. And that Neptune square to Venus is definitely an idealization, a romanticization of our ideas about what that could look like. Especially with Venus being in the 10th house, it's very focused on what is it going to look like? What am I going to look like if I was to do this with my life? What would I look like to other people, and how would I be perceived if I chose this path? I also want to mention how close the North Node is getting to squaring up with Pluto. So Pluto is at the earliest degrees of Aquarius, and it only entered there last month, but it's already retrograde and it's going to come back into Capricorn. But it's sitting right around that 0 degrees of Aquarius, and the North Node is at the end, beginning of Taurus degrees because it moves backwards. It's about to approach the 0 degree mark of Taurus, and it's about to have that really tight square. We haven't seen the North Node have one of those hard aspects with Pluto since probably like 2019, when the North Node was in Cancer and it was opposing Pluto in Capricorn. But this next hard aspect, this square here, is going to be really culminative. I think the fact that it's taking place so close to these eclipses is going to be really interesting. I feel like it's going to be this big push. It's going to feel like this big push of energy towards the paths that we're trying to go on, and towards the paths that are kind of opening up for us right now. I feel like a good way to think about and visualize eclipses is that they are portals. The portal opens up and then 2 weeks later it closes, and the things that happen in that little doorway and that little gateway and that little portal, they can be really intense, they can be really extreme, and they can be really life-changing in really good ways too. I'm not trying to fearmonger. It literally is like this opportunity. Everything's an opportunity, but it's this window of opportunity where these really big things are ending or beginning in our lives. And I feel like this North Node square to Pluto over the next month or so is going to be another thing on top of that eclipse energy, another big push forward into the futures that we're forging for ourselves, the futures and realities that we're trying to create for ourselves, the beautiful new things we're trying to bring into our reality. It's going to be a huge push in that direction. So that pretty much covers the astrology of the eclipse. That's going to be a lot of the energy that's going to be taking place. So I encourage you to journal about it. I encourage you to do a little tarot reading about it, to check in with yourself, do 5 minutes of breathing, 5 minutes of yoga, something to really center yourself, because these times can feel really confusing and really uprooting, and it can feel like there's a lot of uncertainty and not a lot of stability. But just remember that it's only temporary, and it's all a transition. It's all transitioning you into the next chapter, the next phase of your life. And to me, that's really exciting, and that's why I love talking about this. So let me know where this eclipse is falling for you in your houses, and tell me about some of the experiences you're having with these eclipses. With Scorpio being this big eclipse about dredging up some of your past stuff, I'd love to know how it's manifesting for you in your life. So I just wanted to pull a few cards for each of the elements to focus in on some specific energy and see if I can channel any other messages that might be coming up for y'all at this time. But let's jump into some of the energies. I'm going to start with the fixed signs because this eclipse is taking place in the fixed signs, and I want to show y'all some love. Oh, right away we have what is that? The Nine of Wands. The Nine of Wands in reverse. Couldn't read it. Let's see what else. I'm feeling like a jadedness, a guardedness, a hesitant energy of like, what the fuck do I do next? I don't know what step next to take because I'm scared of any direction I go in, especially with the Ace of Wands in reverse too. I feel like it's a hesitant energy. Kind of fearful, but I feel like it's coming from a place of doubt and like this feeling of like, well, it won't work out anyway, so why should I try? This feeling of like defeat almost, where you have seen how things have turned out when you tried to initiate certain things in the past, and it's left you kind of jaded, and it has you feeling hesitant about trying again in that same thing or trying again in a different area. And the Three of Swords in reverse, I feel like it's something in here, it's something in the heart space that's been really difficult for you to let go of. Something that really hurt you on a deeper level or just affected you really deeply emotionally. And it's something that's, again, it's difficult for you to let go of, and it's hard for you to like get started and get back in that fiery energy again, get back in that passionate energy, that driven energy again. You may be struggling with that a little bit. I know fixed signs are probably struggling with Mars through Cancer. It just feels like not your vibe. Maybe it's hard for you to get motivated and feel passionately driven by that fiery energy. But something that might really help you is to step into the Fool. I think the Fool energy is so beautiful, and it's such a nice energy for these eclipses, especially that last one, that 29 degrees Aries. It gave me such this energy of the Fool, of just like jumping in head first, not thinking twice about it. I just had a song come to my head, Don't Think Twice, Charlie XCX. Good song, listen to it, it has a really great message. There's a feeling of hesitancy and fear about jumping in head first into the unknown, but I think at the point you're at right now, that's the only thing you can do. Maybe there is a lot of uncertainty and there's hesitancy about how things have worked out in the past and how that might happen again. But you have to remember that like everything is a new opportunity for something completely new to change your life. And you won't know until you give it a shot. You don't know until you take that first step and start trying a little bit. And I think there's a part of you that feels held back and kind of like you're pausing before you jump, is this feeling of like, I don't have a plan. I don't have a plan in place. I feel a little bit like nearsighted about this. I'm not sure if I should, solidify my idea, solidify my goal about this first before I really jump into it. Anything else for the fixed signs? I'm not going to take it, it's just too many, but Seven of Wands. Again, the guarded energy, the feeling like you have to defend yourself. Not ready to jump out into the open with it or be public with this because you're fearful of not having a plan and you're fearful of others like coming for you and you feeling like you have to defend yourself. Again, that's like the guarded energy I'm getting with the moon in reverse, but it's more like a protective energy of your heart. Like I have to protect my feelings and my emotions and I feel like some of you are like extra sensitive to criticism lately. And that's why you're a little hesitant to like go out in public and like show certain parts of yourself or like try these new endeavors because you don't really want to be seen in that trial period right now. You don't want others to mock you or judge how you're processing it or the process of it, how you're approaching something, how you're trying something. And so you'd rather just like avoid it altogether because like you feel like you have to protect your ego, your identity, your softer self from that kind of criticism. But I think it's coming from a place of more so yourself than anybody else. It's like a perceived outside criticism. But there's a part of you that really does want to be the Fool and just wants to fucking go for it. Yeah, I feel like there's a part of you that's really tapped out of your deeper self. There's your intuition is something that you're not super connected to right now, and it might help you to really get in touch with that part of yourself, to do a little bit of like meditative spiritual work, to sit down with yourself and really go deep, maybe do some kind of journaling, because I think you're really confused about like long-term vision, long-term goals, what it is you actually want. Again, like I was talking about with the astrology, like we're really thinking about like what's our bigger place in the world. The 10 of Pentacles is like, how am I going to build my legacy? Like what am I going to be remembered for? And I think there's a part of you that just doesn't really know what you want in that area of life, doesn't really know what you're working towards, and so you feel pretty confused and lost right now. And it's a part of you that's like a feeling of disconnectedness from yourself. There's a part of you that you're disconnected from, and I think it's your intuitive part that's trying to tell you something. And that's why you feel like you don't have the clarity of vision of what it is that you're working towards, the bigger picture, the bigger goal, like what is the point of all this? And it can mean something different for everybody. It can mean something really personal to you, and you won't know what that is, and unless you sit down with yourself and try to explore that. Take the time to go sit down with yourself and explore like what it is you want, like out of life, like bigger picture, like who am I? What am I doing? What's my purpose here? I think this is a good time to sit with yourself, be a little meditative, and like listen to your intuition, listen to your gut. Like what is your mind wandering towards? What is your energy focused on? What are you being pulled towards? Really listen to that. All right, let's jump into cardinal signs. Cardinal signs. Any messages for cardinal signs? I know you cardinal signs have been feeling this Mars through Cancer energy. The Tower in reverse. Cardinal signs, are you avoiding a big change in your life? Are you feeling scared and unprepared and doubtful and fearful? Are you feeling worried about the change that's coming? What are you so worried about? What is it that you're avoiding? I think it's a change that you know is inevitable. I'm getting this feeling of like not feeling focused or committed to the current path that you're on. Knight of Pentacles in reverse is telling me like lack of engagement, lack of investment, like not really having all your focus and energy materially on like what's in front of you and the path that you've kind of already started on. I'm feeling this bigger energy of like with the Judgment here. I'm getting a little bit of self-criticism, judging yourself, but I also have this feeling of like you feel like others are judging you or others are criticizing you, or like you know you're not doing your best work right now and you're not showing up in the best way that you know how. And I think it's because there's a lack of connection and interest in what it is you're doing, what the path that you're on. I'm getting like a job, like maybe you have a job right now that's not your cup of tea, but it's just to make money, but you're not even that invested in it, and you're worried that the people that you work with, your bosses, are gonna like notice that and think less of you, if that makes sense. Like it's a fear that you have, but it comes from this place of like you really are just like maybe not in the right job, not in the right place, that it's evident that there's a lack of interest, that you are interested in being somewhere else and doing something else, but you haven't quite figured it out yet. And I feel like you know that there's like a bigger a bigger energy calling you towards something else, but you're not sure how to go for it. I'm getting like how do I start? Like where do I go with that? Like, yeah, I have this idea for my own business. I want to start my own business. Or like, yeah, I have this like lead at a job, another job maybe, but like how do I, you know, leave the path that I'm already on? How do I transition into that newer thing? And I feel like this like you feel this energy around you that like someone's watching you, and that's making it so much harder for you to figure out what you want and like how to go about this like new path, or figure out that currently what you're doing isn't maybe what you want, and you know that you have that feeling that you're kind of moving towards a change in your life, but you're a little bit like avoiding it, denying it. And I feel like it's this energy that you feel like someone's watching you, and that like you're being perceived, and that like you're going to be judged for whatever decisions you make. Like let's say that you like have a good job, but you're just so fucking bored of it, and it isn't really bringing in that much money anyway, or maybe it's something that like you just don't want to put a lot of time and planning into, and like are just not really invested in, but you feel like if you switch to something else, like it's going to be socially unacceptable, or you're going to be judged, or you're going to judge yourself. But I also feel this energy of like you're being called to something else, but you're like, I can't. I don't know how to make that work. I don't know how to start that. What's the first step? Where do I begin with something like that? I feel like some of you are being pulled towards like a different career path or a different vocation of some kind, or like you want to start your own business, but you're not sure how. Like what are the steps to do that? It's something you're really passionate about. Page of Wands. It's something you're really passionate about. Something that you love putting your time and energy into. The complete opposite of this Knight of Pentacles in reverse. It's like, ugh, I guess I'll do this because I have to. But this is like, I'm pursuing this because I want to, and it's fucking fun, and I don't really care what comes of it. I'm just doing it because it makes me feel good. This is almost telling me too that you didn't put a lot of time and effort and planning into the thing that you're currently in, and it's not working out, and it's because that you didn't put a lot of time and investment into it. And that's why you're being pulled towards something else. You're being pulled towards the thing that actually brings you a lot more passion and joy. And you're feeling pretty burnt out from the current thing you're doing. I feel like there's this burden you feel from continuing on the current path that you're on, but there's also this burden you feel of like, how do I switch it up? How do I completely redirect my energy and forge a completely new path for myself? How do you do that? How do I do that? You're just feeling kind of fed up and like burnt out and tired out from doing what you're currently doing, and I feel like because of that, it's making it harder for you to transition into this thing that you actually want to be doing, because you still feel like you don't have that energy, or it's not gonna be sustainable for you. Ten of Swords is an ending, and it feels very intentional. It feels like I'm putting an end to this. It feels like I have to end this thing in order for me to go to the next thing and start the next thing. And I know that. And I think maybe you're struggling with that. You're like, how do I quit this job? How do I get out of this contract? How do I get out of this scenario that I found myself in? this kind of dead end. It has to come to an end. Okay, mutable signs. Last but not least, I had to take a break, put on my pajamas, come back. Let's finish out with the mutable signs reading. Any energy for the mutable signs? Oh. I feel lost in the sauce in a bad way energy, like lost in your feelings, deep in your feelings right now. I got, for some of you, it's feeling like sorrowful and like you really need help but don't know how to ask for it, and you feel like you're drowning in your own emotions. But for some of you, I'm also getting like a, oh my god, I have such a strong feeling for this person and I'm like drowning in these feelings for them. Like a really strong connection to someone else. This is so Venus square Neptune in Gemini and Pisces. Like, oh my god, I'm so helplessly into them that I don't know what I'm gonna do. And you're feeling very restless about it. I feel like you're spinning in circles and burning yourself out, trying to make sense of the feelings, trying to run away from the feelings, trying to distract yourself from the feeling. But it's this overwhelming sense of like reaching out for help from other people, or feeling like really lost and deep in your own emotions and not knowing how to come out of that place. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like depression. It could just be like feeling really deep in your own emotions, like deep in that emotional Neptunian world, the intangible world. Yeah, I feel like you really want something or someone. I feel like it's kind of towards those people who are like feeling a really strong pull towards someone or something. For some reason I'm getting someone, like you have a really strong attraction to someone, but you feel so doubtful about the situation that you feel like you're drowning in that emotion of like, oh my god, I have a hopeless crush on this person. Like that feeling of like, it probably won't ever work out. Why am I feeling like this way? This is so exhausting to have a crush. And feeling really burnt out. There's a passion that you have for this person or thing. I feel like it could also be a thing where you're trying to distract yourself and you like avoid rest and meditation and sitting with yourself, because then the thoughts will start to come about your true feelings about the situation. And so you're keeping yourself going, you're keeping yourself stimulated, you're keeping yourself motivated, you're pushing it forward, you're distracting yourself. Something's hurting you. Something's hurting you, something's plaguing you, something's weighing heavy on your heart. Something that kind of messed you up and twisted you up in a way that you didn't expect it to. There's a sorrow energy here. There's a guilty energy here. There's like a, almost like a hopeless energy. Wouldn't be surprised if like the 5 of Cups came out. I'm almost getting that too. I got rejection of conventionality, and then I got doing things your own way. I feel like some of you are like, I can't have that type of person. I'm not their type, or maybe they're not my type. And there's a feeling of disappointment associated with that, a preemptive disappointment because you haven't actually tried or seen how this could go. But there's a sorrowful energy here, and you're trying to muster up your courage to distract yourself and follow other pursuits and just have fun in other ways and kind of be rebellious, kind of ignore this feeling, do things to avoid this feeling. Maybe even going into that energy of like, oh, I don't care and I don't want them to see me upset, so I'm going to pretend like this doesn't bother me at all. Trying to be like contrarian almost with that rebellious energy, like I'll just do things my own way. Feeling like you can't have what you actually want, so you keep having to come up with different ideas about like what you could have, what you could settle for, and like you're like, I can't have the thing that I actually want, so like what's some way that I can twist this situation into like being rebellious and going after something else to prove that I don't want that. But it's like, why are you keeping yourself from that? Why are you preventing yourself from wanting that? Like, what's so wrong about wanting that and having a desire for that thing or that person? It's like trying to push yourself in a different direction just to be like contrarian. Ace of Wands, there is a fire being lit within you that you can't really hide, you can't really dim right now. There's something that has sparked your passion and you are feeling so ignited and ready to move forward. It's this sense of newness, this sense of beautiful energy that makes you, this could be something that could lead to a lot of happiness and fulfillment, but I think you're avoiding it or ignoring it or telling yourself that you can't have it or that you shouldn't want it or that you can't make it work or like you're not that type to have that. Like you don't see yourself as someone that could do that or could have that, but it can make you really fucking happy. And it may be unconventional. Maybe that's why you're telling yourself you shouldn't want it or you can't have it, like because you don't know what it's supposed to look like because no one has done it before you, or you think no one's done it before you, or it may be different in the eyes of other people. But I sense a lot of passion. But I feel like there's this disappointment before you've even like really gone for it of like, I'm gonna end up disappointed. Let me get one more. This is hopeful. This is someone looking into the future with a lot of optimism. Not just in terms of like where I could go, what I could do, but what my options are, what my opportunities are. And I think coupled with this energy is you're starting to feel a lot more hopeful and optimistic about what you can have and what you're capable of accomplishing, what you're capable of obtaining, the kind of love and relationship that you want, because I was getting that person energy. Like, I think you're telling yourself that you can't have that because that person wouldn't go after you, but like this could be something that turns into something really beautiful. And I feel like you're feeling optimistic and looking towards the future, maybe planning and constructing the kind of future where you can have this kind of happiness, creating a new environment with this newfound passion and energy so that you can have the kind of 10 of Cups that you want. Yeah, there's an optimism, a looking into the distance of like, where can I go next? What can I do next? Instead of trying to limit yourself and pushing yourself away from the thing that you feel yourself being drawn towards in the first place. I think the pain and the doubt and the disappointment is coming from a place of like avoiding and ignoring the thing that you're actually being pulled towards. Don't ignore that. Try to lean into that. There may be a lot of big emotions there, but it's nothing you can't handle. It's overwhelming because it's like, it's beautiful. It could be like really fulfilling and amazing and gratifying. All right, I will leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching this. It was really fun to sit down and do one of these again for the first time in a long time. I hope you enjoyed these readings. I hope you enjoyed the astrology portion. Let me know in the comments which parts you liked and want to see more of. Give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe. I do personal readings, so if you're interested in a personal one-on-one astrology consultation, I have a few different services that I offer. So just look in the description box for all the stuff you need to know, including my email, and we can set up a reading. The tarot deck I use is down below. All my links are down below. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good eclipse. Take care of yourselves. Bye.